Hello everyone, my name is Wesley Hunter and welcome to our safety meeting. You'll be hearing from myself, Lance Fisher, who will be introducing you to safety and steel structures, Sky Holmgren, who will do some activities to help assist in learning, Zane Mason, who has provided us with some visual aids, and Jake and Hunter will be giving the questionnaire and taking questions to ensure that you've learned enough to be safe while erecting steel structures. The topic overview of what we will be doing, everything I've just described again. Lance Fisher will introduce you to steel structure safety. Sky Holmgren will do some activities. There will be a harness demonstration. And then Zane Mason will give you the questions and take some questions as well to make sure that you understand what we're trying to get you for. The objectives here is we will be discussing steel structure safety. We will be having a safety plan in place when working with steel structures. Sky Holmgren will be giving a safety harness demonstration, teaching you how to use it when working in high areas. There will also be a video about steel erection that we will watch. And at the end, we'll be taking the questions again to ensure that you have an understanding about how to be safe when you're erecting steel structures or leading the men and women who will be erecting these steel structures.
When building and working around steel structures, there are many hazards that are present, not only for operators, but also for the ground employees involved. We will discuss what those hazards are and how to identify them on the job site. We will also discuss how to implement our safety plan in order to avoid those hazards that are present. There are many hazards that come with steel erection and construction. One of those hazards are cranes. When working around and with cranes, you must keep a safe distance and know how to properly rig and hoist material to the crane. When doing so, you must also know all pinch points and stay clear of them at all times. While working steel construction, there is always a hazard of overhead loads. Every employee and operator has the responsibility to keep an eye out for the loads that are being transported, where the loads are going, and what is in the way of the path of the load's direction. While working on steel structures, the structure in which employees will be walking on may be uneven, have a narrow surface, or be a far fall to the ground. While walking on steel beams, employees must always be tied off. While working higher than 6 feet, employees must have a personal fall arrest device properly attached to them and to a safe object that can support their fall. Workers must have all tools tethered to their person in order to help eliminate falling objects. Slips, trips, and falls are a super common and preventable hazard on the job site. Because they are so common, they are often overlooked about how to prevent them. One way to prevent them is to always have a clean and organized workplace. When a job site is organized, employees know the location of materials and how to work around them to avoid tripping hazards. Keeping a clean job site helps eliminate and prevent injuries from happening. A safety plan is a smart and efficient way to ensure that employees and bosses go home at the end of the day the same way that they arrived to work. When new employees are hired and enter the job site, they must wear a different color high visibility vest that will be fluorescent orange compared to the fluorescent yellow high visibility vest that others will be wearing. They will also wear a fluorescent orange hard hat that is different from others. Both precautions will allow operators to be extra cautious when operating while they are present. This will also allow fellow employees to keep an eye out for them when needed. Safety training will be provided to all new employees or employees that have never worked around cranes before. Employees must complete this training before entering the job site. With this training, employees will know how to properly hoist and rig up cranes and materials. They will also know the safe distance to stay away from cranes and outriggers when in operation. Employees will know that if for any reason they need to approach the operator of the crane, that they make and keep eye contact at all times as they approach the operator. This way, the operator knows where they are at all times so that they may stay out of danger. Personal fall protection will also be administered to all new employees or employees that may need a personal fall protection system. Once these are administered, a safety training on the proper way of how to wear these and use them will also be given. Employees must have an approved certification in order to use these. See something, say something. This policy explains itself, but if you see a hazard on the job site or someone working in an unsafe manner or creating a hazard, say something. Say something to that employee, creating a dangerous work environment for everyone else involved. And also say something to your supervisor so that they are aware of the risk.
Hi, I will be adding upon the discussion about safety and steel structure erection. I'll begin with a video that explains to us the best ways to stay safe on the job site as we are participating in these steel structure erections.
This week's Safety Toolbox Talk is on steel erection. So for those of you who don't understand steel erection and all of the tasks involved and all of the hazards associated with this task, that's what we're going to talk about this week. Now, this particular job of ours is coming out of the ground, and prior to mobilizing this job, this crew and I, our superintendent and project managers, we sit down and we go over their site-specific safety plan. And we talk about their safety procedures, which would include the crane, the setup for the crane, the loads being lifted, where they're going to be staged on the project, the crew size, the time that they're going to start, and then also their means and methods to get up there. Now, these gentlemen are using boom lifts right now that they're tied off to, but they do get out on those horizontal members with beam skates, and they traverse up in that area so that they have fall protection. Now, OSHA actually calls for fall protection in subpart R for steel erection for connectors and detailers starting at 15 feet, not to exceed 30 feet. But on this particular job, Berglund has written in the contract 6 feet. So this particular contractor is tied off all the time at 6 feet as they're making these connections. And these are qualified riggers up here on this project. Their loads come in through an excess gate over here. So a flatbed will pull in here, they'll offload and stage their product in this vicinity for rigging. And as you can see, they've got a single choker cable up there that can withstand that 10,000-pound beam, per se, as they're making their connections. And then their exit gate is right here. So the flatbeds come in, they offload them, and they pull out their second gate. Take a look at what's going on here. We've got bobcats, we've got lulls. They're trying to stay out of the vicinity of the steel erection process. The steel erection process takes precedence over the entire job site. No one else is supposed to be working in the vicinity of this process because of suspended loads. Nobody's supposed to be working underneath suspended loads. And then the crane comes into factor here also, set up on distribution mats. The swing radius is protected. There's more staging area here. Fall protection is the biggest component of steel erection. Iron workers are the third highest to insure in the country behind miners and the oil riggers out at sea. Extremely dangerous task at hand. A lot of complications with steel erection, plumbing up all the steel, and then obviously nobody working below the loads. And then also what comes into factor here are the bolt settings. So when they set this column, there's typically 4 bolt settings. These bolts all have to be surveyed on every single column in this plot, making sure that they're sound and not bent so that these guys can plumb up all the steel and deck this thing out. So this week, we'll talk a little bit about steel erection on our projects and staying out of the vicinity of the swinging loads of steel erection procedures. Thank you.
So what can we learn about this video, class, about how we can stay safe in steel erection processes? And as you think about that, as stated in the video, there are many different aspects that we can think about, as with staging, with rigging, with the laying out of the actual members and all of that. As we're in these processes, we need to be thinking about how we can stay safe. But the main 4 categories, as in all aspects of construction, are the focus 4 hazards: falls, caught in or between, struck by, or electrocutions. So in steel structures, anything above 15 feet above the lower level, we need to have fall protection. And precautions needed using the cranes, as was stated in the video as well. The crane needs to have its swing radius flagged out very carefully so that we aren't struck by the crane, so that we aren't injured in that way. Also, something really important that he mentioned is that nobody should be working below the carry load. As stated in the video, as they're staging and as they're participating in the labor, they're trying to avoid all situations of where they would have to be beneath the load carried by a crane, especially with these 10,000-pound beams that we will be working with in steel construction. And as for electrocutions, the crane needs to stay at least 10 feet away from all power lines. And that means on the ground or up in the air as well, as they're carrying the loads. And something also important that OSHA requires is that they map out the routes that the load will be taking, so that we are not in the way of those loads, and so we are not struck by the load and injured in that way. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope this clarifies a few things that we're talking about. And that's my part.
Good morning, class. My name is Sky Holmgren, and I'll be demonstrating a way to avoid fall hazards during steel construction. OSHA Standard CFR 1926-761 B through B5 states, all employees exposed to fall hazards must be trained and instructed in the following areas. First, the recognition and identification of fall hazards in the work area. Second, the use and operation of protective systems such as guardrail systems, personal fall arrest systems, positioning device systems, fall restraint systems, safety net systems, and other protection to be used. Third, the correct procedures for erecting, maintaining, and disassembling and inspecting the fall protection system to be used. Fourth, procedures for protection from falls to lower levels and into holes and openings in walking/working surfaces and walls. And fifth, the fall protection requirements of this subpart. One example of why we need to follow this OSHA standard comes from the OSHA website itself. It reads, at the start of the shift on a cold January day, an employee slid an impact wrench down a 112 pitch roof to position it near the edge. There was light frost on the roof and the wrench was not slowing down. Fearing that it would go over the edge, the employee began running after the wrench. The foreman shouted, "No, Pat, no," but the employee continued, even diving after the wrench. He slid off the roof edge on his stomach and impacted approximately 23 feet down and 20 feet out from the building on the asphalt driveway. The steel erection standard in place at the time did not require fall protection on non-tiered buildings for fall hazards of less than 25 feet. Failure to recognize the fall hazard contributed to the accident. Now we know the result of this story as they wrote it on their website, but I want you to think about a couple other things. How could this have gone different if he was wearing a safety harness? Another thing I want you to consider, what might have happened if he was wearing his safety harness, but he was wearing it too loose or otherwise improperly? The safety harness could have easily choked him on his fall, restricted some part of his circulation, or something else bad could have happened. I want to go into demonstrating how we try on the safety harness, but before we do so, I feel it's important to learn the parts of a safety harness. Here's one that Brother Kinville let me borrow, which is a pretty standard safety harness and similar to any one you might see in the industry. So the parts of a safety harness I have written on the board behind me. I'll stay on this side so you can see. The first is the dorsal D-ring. The dorsal D-ring will be on the back of the harness when you put it on. And it's used to connect your lanyard, which is this. The couple parts of the lanyard are going to be your shock absorber here, which we learned about in class, as well as your snap hooks, which will be at the end of your lanyard. So when wearing the harness, you'll have one snap hook connected to the dorsal D-ring on the back of your harness. The other snap hook will be anchored somewhere on the surface that you are working on. Properly anchored, but that's a story for another day. Before putting on your safety harness, it's important to inspect it. What you're inspecting for is basically wear and tear, specifically tears, or any other defects it might have. I'll now show you how to properly wear the safety harness. It's a bummer that we aren't able to meet in class because I was going to give some of you or all of you the opportunity to try one on quickly. If you do have access to one, I would encourage you to go try one on before you get in the field and try and put one on. I learned the hard way when I borrowed mine from Brother Kinville this morning that I had no idea how to put it on. I had to go back down and ask him to help me. But I've done it several times since then. Again, you're going to want to start by inspecting your harness. After that, you're going to throw the shoulder straps over your shoulders, being conscious that the dorsal fin is on your back. Before you put this on, it's important that all your buckles are unbuckled. Otherwise, you're going to get here and you're going to be trying to figure out what's going wrong. Brother Kinville's safety harness has these nice shoulder straps for comfort, so I made sure to adjust those over the top of my shoulders. The next thing you're going to want to do is make sure this chest strap will be going across your chest when putting it on. Some harnesses will just have a buckle. Depending on the harness you buy, this one requires you to slip it through this little slot and anchors you right there. Okay, before you tighten that up, you're going to want to take your leg straps, loop them around your thighs, and they should have some sort of buckle here. Again, this one has an interesting buckle. This is what I kind of needed help from Brother Kinville on. Some of them look easier or are easier than others. This one you just slip in right there and it connects. Do the same thing with your left leg. All right, once you have all your buckles properly buckled, you want to make sure that the harness is fitting right. If it's super loose, again, you're going to run into those problems of choking you or whiplashing you as you fall, and you don't want that. So first thing I do is just tighten the chest strap here. And you kind of will have to go back over these again after you're done, but you've got your chest strap tightened. You want to come down to your legs and tighten those as well. One good indicator of when you know that the harness is fitting correctly is when you can fit about the width of your hand or the width of your fingers in between the buckle and your leg or your sides. One important thing to remember, so that after you've tightened that these don't come loose, the safety harnesses will all have these little rubbery plastic things right here. You want to slide those down tight with the buckle, tight with the joint. This will ensure that the straps aren't going to come loose on you while you're working. After you put on your safety harness and before you go up and start working, the last thing you want to do is have a coworker or a friend or somebody inspect that the harness is fitting properly, again, that there are no defects, and that you're looking good to go. What that person is looking for, again, is that everything is tight the way it should be, and that especially that your dorsal D-ring is right across your spine, up close to your shoulder blades, as you can see mine is on the video. So again, I'm sorry you guys didn't get to demonstrate this, but if you have access to one, like I said, I would really encourage you to go put one on, make sure it's fitted properly and that you know how to do so. This will really help you once you get into the field and need to be wearing one of these on a daily basis. Thanks for watching the demonstration. I hope you learned something today. And I hope you guys are learning something about steel construction and that you'll be safe as you're out in the field. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jake and Hunter, and I'm going to be doing a quick evaluation to make sure learning has taken place as we've gone through the steel structures safety portion. And I'm going to go through and just ask a few questions to you guys to make sure. And if you have the answers, feel free to shout them out. I'm ready. I'll be listening. The first question I have is related. It's pretty basic, but where can we find the OSHA standard for fall protection related to steel erection? That's right. It's in 29 CFR 1926.761B. I think it's important to know where these standards are at so we can refer to them if we have questions later on. So when putting on a safety harness, what are some things you should check for? In the back. Yep, that's right. You want to check for tears and damages. You should overlook the safety harness and make sure everything is looking good, looking spiffy, so you can be confident putting your life in the life of that safety harness. There are 7 parts to a safety harness. Does anybody remember what they are? They're a dorsal D-ring, a lanyard, a shock absorber, snap hook, shoulder straps, chest straps, and leg straps. It's important to know the parts of the safety harness so you can know what to look for when you're checking before you put it on. So how tight should you put your leg straps on your safety harness when it is worn properly? So you want it just tight enough that you can put your hand or fingers between the strap and your leg. If it's too tight, it can restrict blood flow. And if it's too loose, you could fall out. Okay, mix it up with a little true or false question here. True or false, before using your safety harness, you should have a coworker or friend inspect that it's being worn properly. That, my friends, is absolutely true. And I would go so far as to have a friend that you trust inspect it, right? This is your life on the line. If that safety harness is worn incorrectly or it's not maintained, you could have a fatality on the work site, and it could be your own. Why can't you work from a suspended load? Well, that's a simple answer. It's because there is a hazard for falling objects, them falling and striking you, or a struck by incident. We got a few more questions here, and if you have the answers, feel free to speak up. We're ready for you. What is one way to prevent slips, trips, and falls on a work site? That's to keep a clean and organized job site. Be cautious when walking on uneven or narrow surfaces, and watch your step. At the end of the day, we're in the construction industry, and we're working on work sites, unfinished buildings, and there's going to be sharp objects. There's going to be trash. And so just be aware, be smart, use your brain, and just be careful as you go through the job site. And if it's in your realm, clean up after yourself. Make sure the area you're working in is safe and clean. Okay. What should you do if you need to approach a crane operator? This one's a little bit tough. So the first thing you want to do is try to make eye contact with the operator and approach him while maintaining eye contact. Keep your eyes on him so that the operator is aware of your whereabouts. Make sure he's looking at you. I may be looking at him, but if he's off doing his thing, swinging the crane around, I don't want to get too close. That could be definitely an issue. He could swing, he could hit you. There's lots of things that could go wrong in that situation. All right. And what is one way to help prevent the hazard of falling objects? One way to help prevent the hazard of falling objects is to have tools tethered to the person while working. So if someone's suspended in the air, tie the tools off to them with a simple rope, paracord, just certain things that can prevent those tools from falling and injuring someone else below. In construction, it's important to just be smart, right? Use your brain. A lot of the stuff in safety is common sense, right? Be aware of your surroundings, where other people are working. If there's someone working above you, be aware of that. Try not to be below them. I know for me, when I enter a job site, my life is in my hands, right? And I'm not going to go anywhere that I don't feel comfortable with, anywhere that's going to put my life in danger, or even where an injury could occur, right? It's easier to, and I've learned this by personal experience, it's easier to do the job right and safely, even if it takes longer, in order to save money or whatever. Do it right, because in the end, it's not worth risking your life or an injury that's going to even slow the work process down even more. But I encourage you all to take the things you've learned today, to go and be smart and be safe and spread awareness and spread safety. This is my TED Talk.
And sit down.
Kolega Rafał nabiera i ładny wyrzut, piękny i hop do Mareczka. No.
Murzyni się przy nas chowią.
I następnie, i znowu.
Najnowocześniejsza wciągarka.
Hop i już jesteśmy. No proszę Państwa.
Oh, here comes a big stick. Here comes a big stick.
They're going to drown it with acid. We're going to try the big stick theory. He's going to go flying across the... Try to kill the engine with water and hit the big stick. Smother it with a tarp. We've now angered the machine. The machine is now angry. You. This is hilarious. Okay, we're going to smother it with tarp.
This is actually going to work, I think.
Oh, there we go. No. Oh, right him in the hole.
Oh, ride him, cowboy.
We've now got him in the hole. Spin. Oh, ole. 8 seconds. 8 seconds is what we're looking for. He is now blinded and mad.
I can't get you. Oh, this. This has got to be YouTube.
The film is rolling, Howard.
All right.